It was something to the tune of, "My sisters will come for me." The skin on his back, he gripped her hair by the roots. She nipped him on the cheek, so he slapped her, broke her nose, and bound her arms with 2 pieces of his net. He dragged her howling home. He tied her to the kitchen table, then sliced off a piece of her flipper skin and shoved it in her mouth. She was quiet then. He took the skin and hid it in a place that she would not spy. First, he filled a bucket with hot water and soaked her down. She was all soft and dry after a full toweling. Next, he combed her hair lank as Jesus. He spent some time picking out her clothes and was pleased with the outcome. She wore a sagging dress of his mother's and a chain of pearls like an albatross. Each sphere weighed her down. How she longed for her sisters. He looked at her like he would stare at his toenails, filthy but ripe for biting. He fried mackerel for their supper, offered her a spoon, but she could not get the grasping right. She'd never held anything but her sisters. She gagged at the heat, and they spat the bones out 2 by 2. That night, he slept in the fish cellar for decency. She slept tied to the bed, dreaming of her skin where he'd hidden it. Then a better dream. She dreamt of her sisters sitting on the roof, hooking fishermen and eating them for supper. She woke to barking. Her sisters had crawled up the land. They dragged their blubbering bodies to bring her home. Roused by these vengeful cows, the fisherman flung his door open. The seal women nipped at his shins, but his gut hook slit skin. There were blood tracks stretching all the way from the house to the sea. The next morning, a baptism was shortly followed by a wedding. The bride was fit only for a funeral. The village had some consternation about the marrying of beasts and men. But after the exchange of a barrel of eels, the reverend agreed. Even sinners among the seals can be saved. The holy water inspired tears in the Selkie. She gazed at these creatures with their fat eyes. After the fisherman had bound her with his ring, he would not let her within 10 yards of the sea. Wary as a fox, she regarded him, her black eyes unblinking. Even his hands were ugly. She could have wept at them. She longed for the beauty of her sister seals, their soft whiskers, the lick of ears and whiskers on your belly. She would not open to loving touch. Her love was for her sisters alone. She tasted like the sea. First time he left her in the house untied, she smashed everything in her way. She was looking for her skin. Amongst the pieces of pride and his broken crockery, she found only a lock of his mother's grizzled hair. This she pissed on. When he came home, his fists taught her how to keep the house well kept. He learnt how to tread on her heart like a waxed drum, to stop her trailing off to see her sisters. Every meal she'd point out the window, she'd look at the sea, and he would shake his head and stare at her bloating belly. Once he found her face down in a pail of water, swallowing. If she could will it to grow back, she would. In spring, she gave birth to a son with a seal's face and flippers, round black eyes dreaming of the wet. He lived just 2 yowling days. Her husband would not permit a sea burial, so they placed him in the ground. But Selkies do not believe in death. They think that the body's breath moves from wave to wave. Placed in the soil, she did not know where his soul had gone. Soon her belly bloated to the swell of his next child. After 2 years of breaking in, the men in the village joked that they should sell their wives and catch them a seal. Her mouth so open you could see the pink inside. The second whelp lived, and the only sign of her sealish mother were her silver webbed toes. The fisherman named her Merrow. The Selkie still searched for her skin, dreamt of seals gliding. One stormy day, when the fisherman was out at sea, Merrow said to her, "Mammy, what's that thing in the ceiling?" She looked up. She saw grey, folded over in the crook of a beam. He'd hidden it in the ceiling. He'd hidden it over her as she slept. She tugged it down. She breathed in sea musk. She nuzzled Merrow and she stroked the coverlet down, and then she ran. She ran to the ragged sea. She pulled on her skin and she slipped in. 3 scarred seals rose from the deep to greet her. They licked her clean of house dust and men. Together they sang, they dived and they span. Now, at 15 years old, Merrow waited at the shore for her mammy. The silvering had grown and it had spread up her calves, up her thighs. She hadn't told her father. Any mention of the seals or her mother sent him into a fever. For months he'd slept clutching a haddock to his chest. He'd promised her to a man in the village who stank of pig breath. There was a stirring in the water, and then 4 bobbing heads rose. The first approached her. She spoke to Merrow through her nose. The silvering is a sign of your body changing. Soon you will be full silver. You will live your life on land or in the sea. No man can hold you back. Merrow nodded. Her mother stroked her hardening toes with a tattered flipper. Seal ants came and licked her hands one by one. And then they turned and they slid into the sea. She did not know where her mother had gone, only that she had, carried from wave to wave by the sea's intention. She would be back soon. Thank you.